Saralee Renick. I'm a junior sociology major and political science minor. Last summer, I applied to the Shepherd's Higher Education Consortium on Poverty, which is an experiential learning internship that combines internships with poverty fighting nonprofits with an academic program. So this year, the academic program focused on the geography of poverty in a pandemic. So this meant that there was an opening and closing conference at the end of an 8-week internship, as well as keynote speakers throughout, and I had weekly cohort meetings with other students who were placed at other nonprofits. So I applied to the Shepherd's program because I wanted to do direct practice work, and I'm also interested in poverty studies. So the Shepherd's program placed me with the YWCA in Charleston, West Virginia, specifically with the Women and Families Homeless Shelter there, and even more specifically with the Children's program. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I did work from home in Louisville, Kentucky this summer. So I worked with the YWCA Sojourner Shelter for Homeless Women and Families. The YWCA of Charleston is a branch of the national YWCA organization. The YWCA's mission is to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities. Its advocacy today focuses on racial justice and civil rights, empowerment and economic advancement of women and girls, and the health and safety of women and girls. The YWCA of Charleston was founded in 1912. It currently has 7 different unique programs, including domestic violence services, child development, and transitional homes for different vulnerable populations. Sojourners itself is a 75-bed facility for homeless single women, women with children, men with custody of their children, and intact families. So the picture at the bottom here is a picture of the dormitory for single women. All other family units have private rooms. In addition to shelter, residents receive 3 hot meals a day, as well as snacks, toiletries, laundry, and professional clothing. Residents also get crisis intervention, case management, and counseling. Adults attend the Education and Job Readiness Center, where they get help with resumes and job searching and have access to computers. The center serves as a permanent address and phone number for job applications. And they also work with a housing counselor to prepare for and find affordable housing. A counselor follows up with clients after they leave the shelter to ensure they stay financially stable. The children's program includes computer and art classes, tutoring, emotional and social learning, counseling, and field trips. During the school year, Sojourner supplies the children with tools and supplies that they need to be successful students. My supervisor often said that you couldn't tell the difference between a Sojourner's kid and any other kid at school. So I applied to the Shepherd's Higher Education Consortium on Poverty in order to learn more about poverty, but also gain valuable direct practice work with clients. So last summer, I interned at a community development financial institution, and I didn't get a lot of work directly with clients, so I wanted more of that in my internship this year. Unfortunately, being remote, I didn't actually get that. However, I think I was able to accomplish my internship goals to some extent. So my first goal was to develop an understanding of direct practice social work. So I didn't actually get to work with clients, however, I do think I gained some understanding. I learned a lot talking to my supervisor and other staff at the shelter. I was given an overview of all of their jobs, and I kind of got a better picture of what day-to-day activities looked like. My second goal was to learn about the needs that children require from nonprofits. So while I did not actually get to meet any children, I did see a lot of the shelter design and kind of what had and actually hadn't been done with children in mind. And my third goal was to improve my grant writing skills by brainstorming, drafting, and writing a grant proposal independently. I was able to successfully write a grant for new outdoor play equipment, which I will talk about in just a little bit. My internship did not translate to remote as well as both I and my supervisor would have liked. So I was initially kind of just supposed to be a glorified babysitter, where I was just kind of spending all day with the children working at the shelter and leading them in activities in the children's program. So this wasn't able to happen, so I was initially tasked with kind of planning activities for them. However, I ran out of work to do quickly. So that, it was just hard doing things remote and completing my activities. So like I said, I spent the first half of my summer planning activities. So children's activities focused on art, learning, fitness, nutrition, and literacy. So the first picture is the August activity calendar that I made. So as you can see, it's actually only 1 week because they went back to school after a week. So that was one of the reasons I ran out of things to do quickly. So each day they have 2 activities, at least one is outside and at least one is a craft. So I also designed activities that children can do with their parents, both in the shelter and then at home. So the second half of my internship, I spent working on a grant proposal. So my supervisor wanted me to just write a grant to benefit the children's program. At first, this assignment was very vague and very overwhelming for me, but after my virtual tour, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of play equipment outside for the children. So I wanted to buy more playground equipment at first, and I actually spent a good deal of time looking at playground equipment. It's very expensive, but I eventually found the safety guidelines that basically said there wasn't enough space outside for the equipment to be safe for use for the children. So this was a huge disappointment for me, but my supervisor and I decided to just buy some activities and games. I wrote a budget that included things like a sandbox and cornhole, and my grant was accepted, and Sojourners now has $2,000 from the Kroger Community Foundation to buy new toys. So this is especially important now during the pandemic because the children don't really have anywhere to go. They can't go on all the summer field trips, and they're just kind of cooped up at the shelter. So they've kind of been disappointed all summer, and hopefully now they'll kind of have more things to do. They'll be able to play with some sprinklers and things like that at the shelter. So my internship had several career and academic impacts for me. So first and foremost, remote work is not for me. I did not enjoy the virtual aspect at all. Communication is harder and slower, and it also meant working at a computer all day. So this was something that I did not like in my internship last year, and because of the circumstances this year, it was, again, something I did not like. It's just harder to get guidance and assistance. I couldn't just go ask my supervisor for more work to do. I had to just kind of email her and then sit and wait it out. And then I, despite being an introvert, needed more human interaction this summer. Being alone at a computer all day really just pushed how much I like being around myself. Third, I know that I really enjoy working with children, so although I didn't actually get to work with any kids directly, I liked planning their activities. It was fun, and it was nice knowing that I kind of brightened their days maybe just a little bit by planning some fun crafts and games and things like that. So another big thing for me is that I now am pretty confident that I want to get a master's of social work after graduation. So this goal was kind of some through my internship and some through other things I did this summer. So I audited some free online classes this summer from some social work programs around the country, and I really enjoyed them. I also really liked seeing the way direct practice had a huge impact at the shelter. And the last thing I learned seems pretty simple, but poverty is so complex. This is something that I learned primarily through the Shepherd's academic program. So I already knew it wasn't simple, but the way it kind of impacts every part of people's lives is so much deeper than I realized. So students through the Shepherd's program worked in every sector because every sector feels the impacts of poverty. The causes and consequences of poverty are so blurred and overlapping and systemic. Something really interesting I learned is that suburban poverty is very real and is actually growing at a faster rate than urban poverty. This is something I found really interesting because it isn't addressed in policy and the media. So of course I learned a lot during my experience, so I have some advice for other students seeking summer internship experiences. So number one is advocate for yourself. I'll be the first to admit it, I'm not good at it, but I tried. I tried really hard. And it was easier being remote actually to advocate for myself. And I emailed my boss at least once a week for asking for more work. And while it never actually panned out, I'm sure that if it does, it's very rewarding. So also learn all the time. My supervisor taught me so much even when she didn't know she's teaching. She likes talking a lot and I like listening. So I learned a lot about nonprofit work, managing a homeless shelter, and dealing with the pandemic just during meetings with her. It was incredibly valuable to be exposed to her knowledge. Again, be adaptable. Obviously, this was a big one this summer with everything changing. I was incredibly disappointed when Shep went remote, but I adapted. And it was hard. I'll admit it. It was horrible and it was hard. I know that I would have had a better experience on site, but I still had to make the best of it. Ended up having a rewarding experience and raising a couple $1,000s for the shelter. And be passionate. Again, I found it really hard to be passionate about my work this summer. The pandemic, being at home, and the uncertainty of life made it hard for me to be passionate about my work. I still worked hard for Sojourners and really cared about the activities I gave them and whether or not I'd be able to help the children's program. In a way, I just forced myself to be passionate and be willing to do anything. I had never done a lesson plan before this summer, but I was willing to give it a try. So now I have that experience and I was able to learn new things. as I searched out lessons and planned activities. So thank you. If you have any questions, please attend an APEX Fellow session or make an appointment with APEX.